Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So have you ever heard of trichology? Yeah, honestly, neither have I, at least not until recently. So trichology is the branch of medical and cosmetic studies specifically concerned with the scalp and hair. It's given a lot more credit in Asia and Europe, but for some reason we in North America, we treat it the same as naturopathic medicine, meaning our healthcare practitioners and dermatologists are very unlikely to recommend a trichologist as an option for hair loss. As you guys know, I'm dealing with a ton of hair loss at the moment, and that's because I've stopped every single treatment that I was on. So I'm in the phase of telogen effluvium, which is basically the shedding or resting phase of the hair. Basically, my body was shocked because I stopped all of these different treatments, and so all of the hair is in a resting phase and pretty much falling out. And honestly, because of this, I figured I'd give trichology a try. So I had an in-depth consultation with a trichologist at Trichology Hair and Scalp Clinic. Now I know this video is a bit long, but I promise it's so worth your time. I honestly learned so much about healthy hair and healthy scalp, and now I'm even more disappointed in the medical community's lack of understanding of hair loss. Caroline Ruggiero, a trichologist at Trichology Hair and Scalp Clinic, understands hair on the scalp in a way that I've never seen before, and she uses various tools to get to the bottom of what's really going on. In this video, we're going to cover a bunch of tests that's done in a trichology consultation and really assess what's going on with my scalp. You won't believe it until you see all of the gross pictures of my scalp, warning, but it seems like I may not actually have androgenetic alopecia. Instead, there seems to be some other underlying issues that are causing my hair loss. Apparently, many women get misdiagnosed in this way. So join me on my trichology consultation. I'm letting you in on a very private experience because I really want to share this with you. Now, before we get to the video, be sure to click that subscribe button to join me on this journey and to see more videos like this. And feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Lylah. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm gonna now turn it over to Caroline Ruggiero of Trichology Hair and Scalp Clinic, and she's a certified trichologist. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I did. So quickly answer for me, what is a trichologist and what exactly do you guys look at in comparison to, let's say, a dermatologist?
A trichologist is a hair and scalp specialist, and a trichologist I really see as an extension of your hair and scalp team. We are not to be seen as used instead of a dermatologist or instead of a hairstylist. We work together with your healthcare team, with your stylist, to bring your hair and scalp to its optimal health level. So a dermatologist really focuses on serious scalp disorders, serious scalp conditions, and people will come to see me and I know when to say, listen, this is beyond my scope, you need an antifungal cream, you need a proper diagnosis. Okay. I'm pretty certain this is what it is, but you need to see a dermatologist. Okay. In terms of what I do, less serious scalp disorders and conditions that we can treat, chronic scalp conditions like seborrheic dermatitis, seborrhea oleosa, sometimes even psoriasis. We can use combination therapies that are used in addition to what a dermatologist may recommend to give you relief for long term.
Okay. So in terms of scalp health, what exactly are you looking for scalp health compared to, let's say, a dermatologist?
Yeah. That's a great question. So with a dermatologist, I think that a lot of the time they don't really take the time to take a good look at somebody's scalp.
They don't.
Yeah, so if you fall within a neat category of hair loss or an autoimmune condition, then absolutely a dermatologist is a great option for you. But if you really want to know if your scalp is healthy, you have to see a trichologist so that we can take proper readings to determine what that level of health is. Right. So we want to measure hydration, we want to measure sebum, we want to measure pH, right. We want to use a UV light camera that looks for oxidized sebum, that looks for irregularities, imbalances. And we take all of that information, now we combine it with, if necessary, blood work. So we will look at your blood work. We will look at certain levels in vitamins and minerals and see if you're absorbing things properly. For people that come to me with hair shaft disorders, we will epilate the hair and bring it to a lab and now look at mineral deficiencies and excess minerals in the hair and determine if we need to fix that as well. So I am probably going to take the closest look at your scalp and your hair that anybody's ever looked at. So Lylah and I had a little conversation before we started about her health history, but I'm going to ask a few of these questions again before I go into the actual analysis. Our trichology consultation usually starts with a conversation where we go over quite a few details. And then if I feel that the person needs a thorough hair, shaft, and scalp analysis, we move to our Trichology test. And this is what we're going to go through and show you today. The first part of the Trichology test is really asking you a little bit about what you do with your own hair. How often do you wash it? What products are you using? What are you doing day to day? So how many times a week do you shampoo your hair?
Usually once a week, sometimes twice a week.
So 1 to 2 times. Yeah. And you're using a professional shampoo from what you told me,
yes.
right? Yeah, only good quality stuff.
Yes.
Any styling products?
Sometimes I'll use dry shampoos, usually Revivagen's dry shampoo or Chlorine's, but that's about it. Not really much. Some nice natural Aveda hair oils. Nothing too.
Not on any medication, you had mentioned that.
Nope.
Eating habits. We talked about you're pretty healthy.
Yes.
You know, you go to the gym, you eat well, you eat a balanced diet. But what we had discussed is, especially for women, protein's really important. Iron is really important because hair is high sulfur, fast growing protein. It's really dependent on iron. So I always like to ask women, how much meat are you eating? How many leafy greens?
Not enough.
I'm also looking at the crown and the part here. Generally, genetic hair loss, you'll see quite a difference between the hair on the top and the back. In your case, actually, I'm going to say that it almost appears as if the crown and the back portion here is a little bit more diffuse than your hairline. And part of that may be because of the fibers. We'll have a better look when we do the micro camera.
Okay.
Where would you say your expectations lie in terms of what you'd like to see with your own hair?
At this point, I'm kind of just wanting to maintain what I have. I've come to terms with with my thinning, and I know that's probably just going to continue over time. And I'm very exhausted and tired of trying different supplements and treatments. I just want to be kind of free of the whole hair loss thing.
Yeah. So I'm going to put your expectations as that as well.
My expectations are low.
We'd like to be here, but if we can maintain what we have, and really that's what hair loss prevention is about. And I, more often than not, will tell women that see me, men as well, there's no cure for hair loss. If there was that solution, that magic cure, everybody would be buying that pill or using that topical, and there would be no need for people like me. I also, treat other scalp disorders and hair shaft conditions, but for hair loss, certainly there'd be no need.
Right.
But there is no cure for hair loss. All we have is proper care.
Yeah.
And the moment that you sort of shift your thinking as to looking for that magical cure to now a treatment for something that is ongoing, it really will change your life and change how you view your hair. So now we're going to actually take a look at sort of physical examination. So feel your scalp and look for tension. And your scalp is really pliable, which is lovely, actually. And you're going to say, why? Why is pliability important? One, if people want to get a hair transplant, which you're not here for, pliability is important because hair transplants can tighten the scalp.
Okay.
But a more pliable scalp usually tells us that we have a better chance of getting those nutrients and that oxygen into the hairball, because you're going to have a little bit better microcirculation and vasodilation than somebody who has a very tight, tense scalp.
Okay.
And usually people that have less pliable scalps are much thinner. And the reason for that is there's a little muscle connected to each hairball called the erector pili muscle. And as the hair gets thinner, that muscle gets thinner.
Okay.
And the scalp becomes more tense.
Got it. Yay for my mushy scalp.
Yay! Yeah. So you are losing a bit. And I had asked you how often you wash your hair in the beginning.
Yeah.
And we talked about, 1 to 2 times you find it makes your hair feel a little bit better. And look a little bit better. The other benefit of washing your hair often is telogen hair, so hair that is meant to shed, will not shed necessarily unless it has an incentive to. So the hair that you should be losing when you brush or massage or wash your hair is going to sit there in the follicle funnel really lazy because it doesn't have an incentive to go anywhere until you wash your hair. So I hear this all the time. Women that have hair loss don't want to wash the hair because, one, I think there's a fear of losing an excess amount.
So psychologically, yes. We think that, every time we wash our hair, we're like promoting and encouraging more loss. I don't know why.
Well, and the other thing is, if you are not massaging your hair, if you're not washing, if you're not brushing your hair, what's going to happen is all of those telogen hairs that have accumulated over the course of the week are going to fall out when you wash your hair.
Right.
So they would have fallen out when you were, if you'd washed your hair and brushed your hair often, but they're all building up. And when you wash it, you see a ton of hair, you panic, and you don't want to wash your hair. So it's this vicious cycle. We really have to treat our scalps like we treat the skin on our face. Would you go 5 days without washing your face? No?
Wash your face
Why
like
not?
2 times a day.
What do you mean? Aren't the oils good for your skin, and aren't they going to keep it healthy? No, the same principles apply to scalp health. Your scalp wants to be clean. It wants to be massaged. It wants to be exfoliated.
All right.
Scalp is soil. When that soil is healthy, it'll grow a healthy crop. But it's not healthy because of, nature. Sometimes, yes, you are naturally more predisposed to a healthy scalp, but you need to intervene to keep that scalp healthy.
Right.
Just like we need to intervene to keep our skin healthy. Same principle. So I'm going to say the hair loss is moderate. You're losing a little bit more.
Okay.
But what you have to remember is the hair that you're losing, and I mentioned this earlier, is not healthy hair.
Right.
So you have to sort of, every time you see that strand, not panic and be like, that's dead hair. I don't need it. I don't want it. I need it to come out, because also, I mentioned that little baby hair.
Yeah.
It won't come in until that dead hair leaves.
Right.
So you need to make room for the next generation. The next part of the tricho test is where we look at the, again, health of your scalp, but with taking very specific measurements. We are going to collect oil, measure hydration and pH of your skin. And together, those values are going to tell us how healthy your hydrolipidic film is.
Okay.
And your hydrolipidic film is a protective layer of skin made up of hydro, water, lipids, fat. When it's balanced, the hair will grow in a healthy, balanced state. When it's not, it's going to struggle. No matter what you do, what vitamins you take, how many times you exercise, if this scalp, if this hydrolipidic film is not healthy, the hair will always struggle to grow properly. So nothing that I do is invasive, by the way. To rub this little device on your hairline, then on the top of your head and your crown. A balanced pH is anywhere between 4.5 and 5.5.
Okay.
And if you know anything about biochemistry, that's actually very low. Anything below 7 is acidic. What that tells us is that your scalp and your skin is always in a bit of an acidic range. And it has to be because, as we talked about earlier, sebum or oil, we produce it to fight off bacteria. It's antimicrobial. We produce more of it when we go through stress, because it's a defense mechanism. So, people break out when they're stressed, or teenagers break out. This all has to do with hormones. So what I want to find out is Lylah's pH within balance? And you can see that now my app is connected, so I'm going to just... Okay, so 6.45 is actually high. And by high, I mean alkaline.
Okay.
What does that mean? That
What does it
that that means that if you are producing oil,
Okay.
You may not be producing enough. Actually, surprising to you.
Oh, it's so funny.
So
Okay.
it's a little bit. It's a couple things, but alkaline is a little bit too high. You should be 5.5 is the max. So at 6.5, it's a little bit higher than I'd like to see.
Okay.
And what happens? The problem is with alkaline levels is when you don't produce enough good quality oil, you're not producing the ingredients that you need to fight bacteria. So who has a very alkaline scalp in general, from my experience? Women, men that have psoriasis,
Okay.
some types of dermatitis, but yeast on the scalp, molds, bacteria.
Okay.
And we need to sort of, in your case, and we haven't done this yet, but clean out your scalp, get that fluid oil to come out, and that's going to help to balance those levels. The next part of the analysis is a hair density measurement, and this is a really important portion at our clinic because I don't like to just take pictures while somebody's on treatment. Pictures are deceiving, okay? You put somebody in a shadow, you put a little bit of a microfiber in it, and they've magically grown hair.
Right.
For this reason, every 90 days, what we do is we measure the density of a square inch of the hair on the same spot every time. And this is how we gauge whether or not a program is working, whether or not we need to change or tweak something to get better results. So to do this, I'm going to ask Lylah to put on these really funny, funky glasses. And I'm going to mark off a square inch, probably somewhere closer to her crown right here. 51. It doesn't mean you have 51 hairs in this area.
Okay.
It means that the density in this area is 51. So that is our baseline measurement, and everybody will be different. People will ask me all the time, what does that mean? Is that good? Is that number high? Is it too low? No, that's your number.
Right.
So our goal is to keep it there for as long as possible. This is where I like to say I get very up close and personal with your scalp. Whatever this told me, the sebum reader, the hydration meter, either works together with this part of the analysis, or the truth comes out here, really, because even though sometimes in your case your oil levels came out balanced, if in the UV light part of the UV light camera analysis we see oxidized sebum, bacterial colonies, we know that oil is more of a problem for you than you think. Where I had asked Lylah, does it hurt?
So that's the area that's always the most irritated.
This is why, and now you can see why. And you can see why, right? So, important, this part, and I'll go over it again, but with hair washing and washing more often, is even though you don't feel like you get oily quickly, what does washing do, and washing with the right products more often? Just like it would for the skin on your face, by exfoliating and removing this excess hardened oil, clearing the scalp and now replenishing it with ingredients that are going to feed your hair, but the skin on your scalp as well. You're gonna reduce this inflammation and irritation.
Okay.
So an overaccumulation of oil in one area, I mentioned it was acidic.
Yeah.
If you leave something acidic on the scalp for too long, what happens? It hurts.
Yeah.
It's itchy.
Yes.
Listen to your scalp. When oil, we talk about oil a lot, but this is the gland here that produces sebum. And as that accumulates around the hair bulb, unless it's being cleaned out regularly, whether it is with a brush or washing your hair properly, not just with water, it starts to build up and build up and build up and harden. So one, it causes irritation, like we saw here, redness, inflammation. But it also prevents that hair from growing as quickly as it would because it's waxy and hard, so it sort of like suffocates it.
Yeah.
And that's the explanation that's used more often than not. I don't like to focus on the fact that the oil prevents proper hair growth. It's a part of it.
Okay.
It's a part of it. But also the inflammation and the discomfort is an important reason why washing your hair often with the right products is important. But overall, not bad, to be honest. The hair's fine, but there's quite a bit of it. So, we like to also say when there's hair, there's hope. I can't grow hair in areas where hair doesn't exist. But as long as there's hair, we can strengthen that hair and build it. Okay. And it's like, I use all these analogies, but it's like taking a fine sort of wimpy hair and taking it to the gym and feeding it really good food for a few months. What's going to happen with the body? The same thing that would happen with the hair. It'll strengthen, it'll thicken. But in terms of androgenetic alopecia, again, there's certain clinical features that we look for and you don't exhibit. I have to look at these a little bit more closely, but in terms of the families and the groupings, you don't see that the hair is finer, and I see that. There's hairs that are finer and thicker, but in terms of miniaturization,
yeah, that's something that I always hear people who have
use that term.
Androgenetic alopecia specifically will say, oh, are my roots miniaturized or the follicles miniaturized? Can you tell in these photos? I see that a lot. And
yeah, well, with androgenetic alopecia, the miniaturization really refers to a very specific type of thinning. So the hair is not just getting finer. It's getting finer and it's getting smaller and shorter.
Right.
It's losing pigment and it's happening with each growth cycle. So that's miniaturization. When you see somebody that has telogen effluvium and they've had a lot of shedding, their hair is not miniaturized. So again, in your case, and if I blow up these photos, you can see that there's different densities. I mean, different hair body indexes for the different hairs. But I don't see a big, the ratio doesn't go up significantly at the top of your head, which is standard for endemic alopecia, where you see shorter, finer, thinner hairs, which tells me maybe there's other things going on as well. Okay, so here we have an overview of all of the images we took, from the panoramic shots to our 200 magnification, our 50, and our UV light. This is really interesting because you can see side by side what your scalp looks like at this magnification.
Yes.
And I love these photos because they're really, really, really telling of the kind of scalp issues you have and what we should address first. So if we look at these two images, let's say side by side, well, the first thing I noticed is obviously more erythema here, more redness, more scaling, and you had mentioned you're a little bit more sensitive here.
Yeah.
The other thing that we notice is that there's more of this accumulation of what looks like hardened oil or sebum.
Okay.
So I know for a fact that in the areas where you are not washing well enough or not removing that excess buildup, that excess oil that is quite acidic, you're more sensitive. So here you see a little bit less, there's not as much inflammation.
Okay.
Regardless though, in each case, what we do see is that oil is definitely building up. This is oil. So even though those levels were low in terms of the fluid sebum, it is accumulating and it is crawling up the hair shaft.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the first things that you may notice if you go on a treatment protocol with us is when we remove that hardened oil, is your scalp may be a little bit more oily at first. But it's a good sign because what's happening is removing that buildup, and that fluid oil is coming out and it's going to start coating your hair shaft, and you'll probably more than likely see your hair's a little bit more softer, a little bit more silkier, less frizzy. Get freaked out. Look at these images, study them, and then as you're washing your scalp and massaging your hair, you'd be like, this is what I'm getting rid of.
Right.
I'm getting rid of all that stuff that I don't need on my hair. So in terms of the groupings, you can see, the hair is a bit finer, a little bit thicker in certain areas, but in general, I mean, you used Rogaine for quite some time. Yeah. So I think it's maintained a lot of that hair. So now the key is to switch protocols to nourish your hair, feed the hair, prolong growth, but do it in a healthier way. So when we look at the summary sheet for Lylah, it's very interesting because it tells us a lot about what we're able to do as a next step in terms of growing her hair, strengthening her hair, and creating a healthier scalp. The results tell us that really the first step is to correct scalp issues because there's a few levels that aren't where they should be. One, the pH of her skin around her scalp is a little bit high. It's a little bit too alkaline. And what that tells me is that we need to get the pH level lower, and we need to do that by changing the kind of products she uses, but also washing her hair probably more often. In the first image at 200, we can see there's excess scaling, there's redness, there's inflammation, and that's due in part to this accumulation of oil or sebum in this area, which has created that inflammation, created that irritation. And she mentioned that in that area, she's sensitive and she's uncomfortable. The groupings are quite good, so I'm not going to focus too much on hair growth or hair strengthening because my concern really is fixing her scalp first. The UV light camera, we see a couple incidences where there's oxidized sebum, so we know that there's a few bacterial colonies that exist in that area that are going to accelerate hair loss, but overall, not a lot of oxidized sebum. And then of course we have our panoramic shot that is an important indicator or baseline picture that we can compare all these other images against to tell us, are we getting an improvement in density, texture, hair growth? So we're going to start with, I'm going to start with recommending something we call a residue on scalp treatment. It's also been coined facial or facial for the scalp, where we take about an hour to remove excess residue, oil, polymers, copolymers, sebum, and really we're giving the scalp a fresh, clean start. In the same way that you would do a detoxing for your body before you went on a diet. We want to detox her scalp so that the products that I'm going to recommend that she use after the treatment are going to penetrate and they're going to work much faster. Once these levels are a little bit more balanced, stable, once we see a reduction in scaling and erythema and itchiness and irritation, we can now move to a protocol that is going to focus on hair growth and hair strengthening. The problem is that if we were to try to stimulate hair loss or hair growth, right now, it would probably cause more redness, more inflammation, and we would be moving backwards. So we don't want to do that quite yet. So I'm going to print these for Lylah because she's indicated she wants a copy. We put one in her file, and this is what we're going to use to compare all other trichol tests against in the future.
That was a lot of info, I know, and I actually didn't include everything that was covered. But as you guys can see, hair loss is so complex. It's gonna take me a few months to really get to the bottom of what's going on with my hair and scalp, but of course, you guys will be with me through all of it. And the cool thing is, you guys will get to see what a trichology treatment plan looks like from start to finish. For now, all we know is I'm dealing with telogen effluvium, my scalp is compromised, irritated, and there's a ton of buildup. The next step is for me to do a scatial, which you may have heard mentioned already. So be sure to check out the next video in my Trichology series with Truly You Hair and Scalp Clinic. If you want to contact Truly You, feel free to send me an email and I'll happily put you in contact with Caroline, whether it's to buy products, book a consultation, or to simply ask a question. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and I'll see you next time.